Hey, what's up, guys? I'm here. I'm going to do an update video and a 10 questions video. It's been a little while since I've sat here at the bench and brought my laptop out and done one of these kinds of videos. Hopefully, you don't mind seeing the ugly mug and all the shit in my garage behind me. Uh, but just for a quick update on what's going on, we just took a trip with the T-Rex V1 and the car's outside the garage. They're both connected right now in parallel, just charging. Um, Everything went fine. It was actually, let me try to steady this. There we go. It was our first cold weather trip. I've taken a couple like short, like in town trips with this thing. Um, but this was our first trip, so we drove to Rochester from Ithaca, and I didn't even quite fully charge the battery in either direction, both batteries, because I didn't quite need to. But I did about 120 miles, and total on the way home I went a different way, so it was about 128 miles, and I still had some left. I don't know exactly how much. I don't have a way to measure it right now. But yeah, it went great. I was a little nervous about the cold weather, and with both the car and the T-Rex, I turned them on probably about 15-20 minutes before we were set to leave, just to make sure they were all heated before, or up to temperature just before we took off and started demanding power out of them. But it all went fine, and we had fun. We were up in Rochester seeing family. Two different branches of our family live up there, so we were up there having a good time. It's like 10 o'clock now out here in the garage. We got home about an hour and a half ago. And yeah, just had a good time. So now here in the garage charging these two, and then I'll try to fit this battery pack in here. Tomorrow I am picking up T-Rex version 2 from the welder. I guess it's all done, so I got to go pick that up and check that out. And I showed in my last video, I think it was, the flooring, and I can give you guys a sneak peek too. So there is the floor that I have all cut out and ready to go right on top of the Tesla battery pack. That one's an 85 kilowatt hour pack. If you didn't already know that, watch the other videos. All right, balance, stay. All right, good. All right, so that's pretty much the update. I've been buying a ton of parts and just stuff, getting things ready for the build. It should move along pretty quickly, I think. It just is going to take some labor, and I can only do this a couple hours, sometimes every night, sometimes every couple nights. We'll see. All right, now down to the 10 questions that I always get. And I'm going to hopefully direct people to this video so that if instead of answering them, they can just watch this video. So no real particular order. They're all really common. The first question is in relation to, so these relate to the T-Rex, why I built a trailer, why I pull it around, all that kind of stuff. So number one is, why don't you put the battery on the roof? I've heard this hundreds of times, and here are the reasons. So to get a roof rack and to put it on a car, first of all, usually you take an aerodynamic hit. I've never owned one before, but I've heard that it could be 10 to 20% just by adding the roof rack and the bars. And then if you're actually pulling or moving something, it could be on the high end of that 20%. But just adding them, I've heard it's going to be at least 10%. Which, first of all, like I don't really want to lose the aero. Like with this, with the T-Rex, it's pulled right behind the car, so I'm not taking a hit. It might be a slight hit, but not nearly what I would get if I had put it on the roof. Second point for that is that there isn't a roof rack in the world for the RAV4 that I know of that will hold about 840 pounds. And that's what this pack weighs. Sure, maybe I could dismantle it a little bit, put it in some fiberglass instead, and try to do all that, but it just doesn't make any sense to even attempt that. And then, how am I going to get it onto the roof? If the roof rack breaks, it cracks, it falls into my car, and yeah, it would be a mess. There's no way a roof rack could hold this amount of batteries. Even if it could, I would take the arrow hit. And I guess a third point, which is equally important, is that I don't use this every day, so I don't need it on my car at all times. We use it for longer trips, or if we need to go somewhere. If it's on my car, it's always there, it's always on, and it's always giving me the arrow hit. It's always just adding the weight to the car. Oh yeah, also top heavy. I mean, the car is already has a low center of gravity, so that helps, of course, with the car's movement down the road. But man, throwing this on the top is just a really bad idea. How much does the battery pack weigh? I just kind of answered that. This one is about 840 pounds, based on what I've heard. So I don't have the equipment to weigh these. At some point, I would like to have access to a weigh station so I can test each trailer. I could test the car itself. I could test the car in both just to see, but I don't really have access to that kind of stuff. But from what I've read, the battery pack alone is 840 pounds. The trailer and the rest of the equipment and stuff are probably another 300 pounds-ish, something like that. So around 1,000, maybe 1,100-ish for the V1 T-Rex, which really isn't bad. I mean, I'm towing it. The only reason I know it's there is because the suspension makes noise. But when I drove the V2 to the welder for the first time, only time I've had it on the road, I didn't even know it was there. Aside, braking was it took a little bit longer, but the trailer brakes aren't hooked up yet, and yeah, I'll just be aware as I'm driving that I need to stop a little bit longer, or need longer to stop. So that battery pack was very quiet with a Timbren suspension system, and the 85 kilowatt hour battery pack. So pretty much all the Tesla battery packs I've heard are around 1,330 pounds. And again, I can't verify those numbers for myself firsthand. I don't have that equipment, but that's what I've heard. Number 3, why don't you add a generator? And get this all the time. And first, I'm not like a crazy tree hugger that just refuses to burn fossil fuels. If it worked, I guess I'd consider it. But then you're lugging around this generator, and the way charging systems work is you have to be stopped in order to charge. So I don't really see the benefit. I mean, there's going to be there already is charging stations all over the place, and there's going to be more. And I'll just drive to a fast charger instead of wasting 9 hours on a maybe 210 volt charge at 20 amps. I mean, I don't know that much about generators, but I'm sure they're not as fast as some other options out there. So I'd rather just have the battery capacity to drive to where I want to go and charge on that charger. And while I'm camping with the T-Rex V2 that I'm going to be doing, I'll be getting free power at a campground, hopefully, and I'll just plug in there, so I won't need a generator there. I'll just have a big battery pack that I can use for all my stuff. So yeah, I don't think I really need a generator. Don't really want one. Yeah, on to the next one. Number 4, why don't you add a wind turbine for free energy? And this one's come up a few times. There's no such thing as free energy. If you are pulling the trailer down the road and you put a giant turbine on it, it's creating drag. So you're losing energy by pulling the trailer and this fan, turbine, whatever you're going to try to rig up. So you're going to be losing a lot of energy on that drag, and I don't think you're ever going to come close to generating as much as you would lose. And again, I'm not an engineer by any means, and I'm sure there are some of you guys out there who could explain this better. But yeah, there's no free lunch. I just don't think that's possible. It doesn't make any sense to me. The whole point of my projects were to keep them smooth and aerodynamic, so you don't waste as much power going down the road, rather than sticking something on there to try to generate a couple hundred watts. I don't think that'll work. I am all for being proven wrong, but I just don't think that's a great path for me personally. Then number 5, why don't you add drive motors? So I hear this one all the time too. And before I built this, I was looking for an option for longer road trips. So I looked at the pusher trailer idea. There was a guy, I think he actually had another RAV4 that had built one. I've seen pictures, haven't talked to him directly or anybody directly that's actually done one. Personally, I think it's a little unsafe to add anything driving in the back. You have the hinge right up there, and man, if you're going around a corner or something, or what if you're going over some salt or snow or something, and then it just starts fishtailing, it's just not that safe. You probably would have to have a lot of electronics with limited slip, and probably some controls in the car to kill it. I was looking at, if I did a pusher trailer, I was looking for the Spider motorcycles, trying to find a wrecked one, and just taking the whole front end off and trying to have a frame welded and slid into the trailer hitch. And maybe there, because with that bike specifically, it has an automatic transmission, and what else? There was something special about the transmission. One of my buddies is really into bikes, and he said that's the one that you would want to try it with, because it would just, with that transmission, it would coast along until you hit the throttle. So if any of them were going to work, that was the way to go. I couldn't find one at a reasonable price that was wrecked just in the front end, so I scratched that pretty quick. And plus then you're still burning gas, which again I'm not against. If it worked, if that was the best way, then I would consider it. But that tire is also always going to be touching the ground. It would always be adding drag, and yeah, I nixed that. I decided not to go that route. Yeah, and I don't weld, and I couldn't find anybody that even wanted to touch it. Like, everybody said, "Oh, it's so dangerous, you can't do it." So the same idea with the T-Rex itself. I didn't really want to then again get into a motor on the wheels. It's added weight on the trailer itself. There's more complexity in the wiring. There's a lot more stuff you'd have to do. You probably would have to have bigger tires than I use on these trailers here. So it just seems like a lot of negatives. And you gain regen? Like, it doesn't seem worth it to me. And again, if somebody else wants to dive into it and throw a bunch of money at it, it probably would work. But it wasn't the right path for me. I saw too many negatives with it. And then number 6, what is your range? So with the car itself, in the summertime, in ideal conditions, everybody knows that range drops if it's rainy or cold, if you need either of the heaters, snow as we get up here in upstate, all that stuff will diminish your range. But in ideal conditions, you can get around 140 just with the RAV4. It could be I mean, depending on how you drive, could be 120. My record was 144 miles when the car was new. So it's really good. It's a great car. I have a review posted. Again, not super professional or great, but it's an honest review of the RAV4, and I have a lot of experience with it. And obviously, we have two of them. Uh, so yeah, check that out if you're curious about the car itself. But then with the V1 T-Rex, and I keep saying V1 because obviously now I'm working on the second one, so we're calling that V2. So with the original one here with the RAV4 battery pack combined, I again with ideal conditions, I should be able to get around what was it, 160? Yeah, right around 160 or less. I think my record. I didn't prepare for this, so I think my I think my record was 125 of real world range in the summer. But I had quite a bit left, and I just didn't have any energy monitoring device to monitor at the time, and I wasn't really sure how far to push it. So I would say 150-ish reasonably for the two battery packs. What's nice is that because this is just pulled by the trailer, you're in the slipstream of the car, like I was saying before, and once you're on the highway, you're just cruising along, and you're not really wasting a whole lot of energy. I mean, the car doesn't really know you're even pulling anything when you're doing 55, 60 miles an hour. It's it's not expending a lot to keep you up to that speed. So yeah, that's my range. With the V2, I don't know what it's going to be yet. I'm not sure. I don't know what the usable capacity of the new battery pack is so far. In the CAN data, everything looks really healthy. We should be very good, but I don't know exactly what it's going to be because it's significantly heavier, but it's larger. So I'm not sure. We'll see about that one. Number 7 is, doesn't the extra weight take away from your range? And I kind of touched on this already, but as we're moving along on the highway, it really doesn't. So I've done some testing, and I'm getting around 3.2 to 3.5 miles per kilowatt hour used on the highway, which is almost what the car does without the battery pack, and that's excellent. I mean, once you're on the highway cruising along for a long road trip, which I love to do, it's the car. Yeah, you're not going to waste a whole lot of energy by pulling this thing along. I'm hoping version 2 is even better because it has a much better suspension, so it's going to have a lot less bounce. It's lower to the ground, so hopefully a little bit better for the aero. It's going to be heavier, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, I'm hoping it's going to be even better than this one. But yeah, it's really not a big hit, and it doesn't really take away a whole lot. I mean, in the city, yeah, you're going to lose. These aren't really designed to be driven in cities. Like if you're going to drive to a city, you probably would want to pull it off, park it somewhere, lock it up, and then just drive your EV around. Trying to maneuver around a city with one of these, with any kind of trailer, is just a pain in the butt. So I always analyze that in any trip I've taken because I don't really want to get stuck around a city. Like I got stuck in Chicago a couple times pulling this thing around, and it wasn't fun. I mean, I was able to get out and around, but you will definitely lose for range, but that's not really what these things are for. They're not for city traffic. Number 8, why don't you buy a different platform? I really like the RAV4. It's been really easy to work on. It's a complex car, but it's really not. Like, I've never messed around with a different EV. I had a 2012 plug-in Prius, but that's barely an EV. And I did some playing around with that, and it's complex because it has a gas engine and a hybrid system and a plug-in system. So it's different. But I mean, this car has just been easy to work on. Like there's been little quirks. Like I will sometimes charge the car, and all of a sudden the car throws a warning code, and I have to disconnect the battery or cycle the power on and off 5 times. That's one of the tricks that you can use on a Toyota RAV4 EV. That's usually the first thing you try if you get a HV warning or something. You just turn the power on and off 5 times, and if it doesn't go away, then you disconnect the power, and then that takes it away. But the fact that I can do stuff like that and not have to go to the dealer to reset any codes, so far, knock on wood, I haven't broken anything. It's been really open to me poking at it, and I've definitely poked the bear a lot with this RAV4, and it still works. It's been great. So it's also cheap. It's got a lot of room. It's one of the bigger electric vehicles you can get aside from $100,000 Tesla, and yeah, that'd be a big stretch, and it's hard to justify too because I do like this car so much. It has everything I need. I was able to get mine new, and I leased it, and then I bought it. But I couldn't justify spending many times more on a Model X. I love the Model X. I did think about scrapping this before I did the T-Rex and all this stuff. I did think about selling that and getting a Model X, but God, those payments they would be huge. But yeah, so it's a great car, and just you can't beat the price. We got my wife's car. It was a steal. I found it in Denver for $13,500 is what we ended up paying for, plus about I think $1,900 for shipping, something like that. So that's a great price, and I could have 8 of these cars for one Model X. So it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I really like the car. It'd be great if it had more onboard range, an larger onboard battery pack, which I want to tackle at some point. But it really is awesome for most driving. It's been perfect. We use the T-Rex once a month or so for longer trips. Other than that, we just drive around town with them, and they're perfect. All right, number 9. Does your car have all-wheel drive? It does not. I think I might have covered this in my RAV4 review, but the car was not optioned with that. It was a very kind of a basic car. It doesn't have a whole lot of bells and whistles and extra stuff. And they didn't give you any options at all when you wanted to buy. You had 3 color options. That was it. And so they never included it, but it's fine. I mean, I live in upstate New York, and we have winter tires, and I can get through pretty much anything with winter tires. It's got great ground clearance. So yeah, I would highly recommend it. Don't be scared just because it doesn't have all-wheel drive. Number 10. Oh, this is a big one. I always get this one. Why don't you add a solar panel? And I'm not a solar expert. I'm sure some of you guys are, and maybe you can comment below and give me some pointers on how to come back with this question. But oh my God, so a solar panel's what, 250 to maybe 350 watts, and this battery pack, this one here, is 40 kilowatt hours. So I don't really know how to compute all of that, but it would take forever to charge. One person commented and responded to somebody when they asked this question and said it would take something like 280 hours just to charge. It's not possible easily. So if you are curious about that, I highly recommend you watch the YouTube channel. Damn, what was it? I started watching these guys who are traveling from Antarctica to Argentina. I think it was Route del Sol. So Route and then DELSOL. I think they did it. So they designed a one of a kind van that has a huge solar array. I think they said it was 6 kilowatts, and it actually comes out off the roof, and they can charge their battery pack on renewable energy. I think I read somewhere that they had around 100 kilowatt hours for their battery pack that they did, and they use pouch cells from what I understand. I saw one of the videos um, about that, but I highly recommend you watch those guys, and it takes them a full day of charging to charge their battery pack, and they're trying to go on this whole route, this whole trip, with just renewable power from the sun or charging stations that are renewable power, which I think is awesome. Like, that's really cool. I love their videos, so I highly recommend that you check those guys out. But that'll show you approximately what would be required in order for me to do anything possibly with solar panels. And I'm not interested in adding the weight to the RAV4 or the T-Rex and adding just a couple solar panels, aside from keeping a 12-volt battery topped off, which is why I have that one up there. There's not much else they're going to do. So please stop asking me that question. Watch Route del Sol, and you'll see what's required in order to do that. But that's all my questions. That's 10 questions that I get all the time. Looks like we're almost 27 minutes. I doubt this will stop the questions from coming, and I doubt somebody's going to watch 30 minutes of me blabbing to get the answer they want or don't want. but there it is. I mean, those are the answers, at least my answers of my viewpoint of those questions that I'm just asked nonstop. So hope you guys enjoyed it. I do have some other videos I'm working on. I filmed the whole creation of the floor, but I'm trying to wait until the floor is actually done before I post all of those pieces together. But I guess that's it. I'm just gonna sit here and watch the battery charge and have some more beers. But hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving, and I'll talk to you guys on the next one. See ya.